Hey everybody, I'm Jeff, El Jefe. You know by now. Let's go. What are we doing here? Check it out. Chapter 45, Grundle. My lord! Grundle spun his head to see what noble dignitary might be traveling through the square. To his I got the name. I got the voice wrong. Hold on. My lord! Grundle spun his head to see what noble dignitary might be traveling through the square. To his embarrassment, it was he himself. The voice was that of a boy. He couldn't have been more than 11. His pants were stained and his socks mismatched. He was clearly poor. Grundle wondered if he was without a home. What sort of man would use such a pitiable child to deliver a letter? Not a prosperous one, to be sure. Grundle waved to one of the guards, who intercepted the child. He was hustled over to a nearby alley and interrogated. Some minutes later, the guards returned to the group with a letter. They'd opened it and found it to be harmless. Grundle looked to Torvald to bring the camera in close. Torvald reluctantly did so. Grundle read aloud. To whom it may concern, I bring you dangerous tidings. More than one organization seeks the deaths of you and your compatriots. In this dark time, only a powerful ally could possibly keep such forces from claiming the lives of one or more of your number. The Department of Justice is such an ally, but at this... it should be the Faith. The Department of the Faith is such an ally, but at this point their scope is limited. Motherfucker. The Department of Faith is such an ally, but at this point their scope is limited. We reach out to you to offer our assistance in this matter. We ask for nothing more than your confidence and your counsel. Trust me when I tell you, our principles are aligned completely. We await your response in this matter. With deepest sympathy, a friendly order. Grundle breathed deeply, then slowly turned the page, waving Torvald off. Ariel turned the camera away. Grundle continued to read, mouthing the words silently to himself. Oh. For your eyes only. All of you are in the gravest danger. The artifact uncovered by the Order of Wise Sages is unholy to the extreme. The necrotic, the assassins, the mobsters, and the spies in your midst all seek to use its power for evil ends. We implore you to answer our call. In the basement of the central temple, there is a gate which will ferry you to our meeting place, where you will find succor. Come alone or with the others, but be warned. Some within your number may not be as they seem. Good luck and goddess bless. Conclave emissary Captain Reynold Stargazer, son of Roland and Marissa, brother of Aeana the Just, peace and blessings be upon her. Grundle leaned against a pillar, his massive weight knocking a spray of dust from its apex. Torvald waved for the cameraman to zoom in close. As Grundle's regal face filled the viewfinder, a shudder passed through his facial muscles. Zooming in even further, his eyes projected intense pain and a deepening resolve. Grundle waved to the men. Come, my friends. I must speak with Her Mercy. As the party entered the building, a pair of dark eyes studied their movements. Now, I think we've heard of Reynold before, but never before have I got to do his voice and hear how he writes a letter. So that's kind of fun. Oh man, this is exciting. I fucking love this next bit. Are you guys ready? Chapter 46. The wind was chapter 46. Maki. The wind was merciless. She'd climbed the rock face for what seemed like hours, but was probably fewer than 30 minutes. The iron wall was convex at points, requiring a delicate combination of pitons, ropes, and even fingertips to get around obstacles. The rock was wet in places, icy where the wind was sharpest, and completely impassable to all but the most gifted of climbers. All 7 of her trainees had given up at different points along the climb, hiding on ledges and shimmying down ropes, keeping track of her progress with off-grid Visua goggles and scrambled audio links. She'd hoped at least one would have the moxie to push through the fear, but none of them were as strong or as focused as she, which, in a way, was flattering to her ego. She tried not to let her obvious superiority drive her self image, but at times like these, she felt a surge of pride her foster parents would surely have tried to beat out of her. By the time she reached the apex, her hands were bleeding and her face was nearly frostbitten. From there, it was a quick march to the hidden temple, her features obscured by a masking cloak, her body covered with weapons and ammo. The doors opened before she reached them, sliding silently on greased tracks. Everything in the temple was designed to be silent. Even the bells were felt instead of heard. She could feel them, thrumming from the depths with a hypnotic rhythm. Just like the first time she'd arrived here, she felt the thrill of belonging to something so deep, so dark, and so powerful. The doors closed behind her, and just her first day in the hidden and just like her first day in the hidden temple, the fires of Kilkanazar alighted through the Hall of Blades. She fought back tears as the knives came into view. Knives of every shape and description, knives from every corner of the galaxy. Knives so old not even the original peoples could tell you who made them. Each one had a name, a history, a legend attached to it that only the most obscurely obsessed historian would have the merest scrap of knowledge of. Ending a sentence in a preposition? Jeff, what are you doing? God, I remember like struggling over this sentence a bunch every edit, and I've still kept it. So who knows? Each one had a name, a history, a legend attached to it that only the most obscurely obsessed historian would have the merest scrap of knowledge of. And yet, every student of this black house of learning knew their stories by heart. She resisted the urge to draw one from the wall. Fighting back tears of joy, she strode into the hall, shedding her cloak to reveal a sleekly clad body festooned with weaponry, her chest dripping with sweat, her leggings chafing between her steel thighs, her strong backside dancing in the firelight. She felt sexier than she'd ever felt with a living person. In this moment, she was the vengeful goddess of desire, and everyone she'd ever stabbed her doting subject. She climbed the steps to the pedestal, tearing the scabbards from their places. She ripped sidearms from their holsters, tossed long guns to the ground with a double crash, hurled her holdout pistol left, boot knife to the right, and lunged onto the altar, shoving her belly against its stony ridges. She could feel the beating heart of the temple in her chest, in her guts, in her calves, and in her sex. She was home, and gods did it feel good. Oh, God. She's the fucking coolest. Good old Maki. Oh, we're doing good. Chapter 47. Sophris. The climb was easy. Navigating the outer edges of the temple was much more difficult. Sophris knew the Sophris knew the defenses. Defenses? Sophris knew the defenses. Sophris knew the defenses of the temple would spot him immediately, had he endeavored to enter. Therefore, he made the difficult decision to sit amidst the harsh wind and chill frost and make his way into the spirit realms. He journeyed deep into the heart of madness. Hovering before him, in a wide corridor outside the inner sanctum, he faced a deadly trial. The spirits of 7 demonic warriors and thieves, their faces bloody with an unholy ichor, their body parts hanging at odd angles as if they'd been separated and put back together by a child, drifted through the inky tunnels of the spirit realm, their eyes casting about for something or someone to devour. One by one, they noticed him. Try as he might to obscure his psychic signature, they found him. One by one, they drew gore-soaked blades out from their bodies, strings of pus trailing as they emerged. Sophris girded her. Sophris girded. Sophris girded himself for battle. This was a trial he hadn't reckoned on. He plotted a course that would take him through and around each spirit, allowing the most minimal contact. Drawing from a well of surplus positive energy, he prepared for the inevitable. I see you, friends. I mean you no harm. The spirits, sensing weakness, advanced. He felled the first with the merest twist of a mental wrist, exposing its deepest shame, the pain it had felt the first time it took a life. The victim was an old friend who had stolen something insignificant, leading to a midnight stabbing that haunted the spirit all these eons later. Engulfed in its own sadness, the spirit sank into the gunk of the spirit realm. Sophris moved forward. A blade swung and missed. Sophris tapped the elbow of the warrior, a woman who had murdered her sister's children in an attempt to drive her mad, thus ensuring her own ascension to power. The female spirit cried out, her twisted body spilling into a murky sea of blood-spattered infant limbs. The third and fourth spirits charged in a flanking position, as Sophris had predicted they would, each one swinging a hook made from their own shoulder bones, connected to their chests by strands of bloody sinew. Sophris noted they had similar facial shapes and shiny green eyes. They were twins. As he touched each man's elbow with his fingers, they turned on each other, remembering the moment when they'd first murdered a sex worker together at age 14. He heard them screaming and clawing at each other as he pressed forward. Their emotional anguish echoed through his heart, but he soldiered on. The fifth spirit was a great big beast of a man, a Vorok warrior wielding a mighty halberd. Half of his face was missing, taken when he'd been blown to pieces during some ancient battle. He screamed, chilling Sophris to his core. Sophris shielded his mind from the man's corruption, but some of it leaked through before he could be fully protected. He slipped in the gray-black spiritual glop and tumbled to the man's feet. The Vorok raised his weapon high in the air, his left foot rising to add more weight to the strike. In that instant, Sofer switched places with a female Yafriti thief, groaning as his essence merged with hers. Her shame filled him, a memory of rape and torture that ended with the torture of her own victims. Sophris vomited as the Vorok drove the halberd through her skull. From that point, things grew fuzzy. Sophris felt things, terrible, disgusting things, as the last two spirits fell before his power. He could sense the darkness in him growing as their essences entered his soul body. By the end of the battle, a mound of pustulant gore had congealed around his feet. As he came to, he shrieked, clutching as he was the mutilated mass of the Vorok spirit's skull. Strangely, he was unharmed, healed by some force he could not understand. He shuddered. The skull fell to the pile with a weak splash. Tears of blood dripped from the dreamer's quivering chin. Was this what Creel lived for? Sophris prayed he would never come to enjoy it. Pretty gross. I think I have time for this one. It's pretty short. Let me figure out who's the... Is it the captain? All right. Chapter 48. San Demon. Gentlemen, welcome to Calustria. Captain San Demon was resplendent in his dress uniform, epaulets polished, boots shiny and covered with gold. He looked like a peacock that had been dunked in a vat of paint. His smile was forced and phony. The man at the head of the delegation, Colonel Henstress, looked barely awake. He shook the captain's hand half-heartedly and walked past him, followed by his personal guard. San Demon walked beside him, pausing as he stopped to speak with the occasional employee of the shipyard. They came to a red carpet lined with reporters, Torvald at the head of the pack, his cameraman aiming the camera on one slight shoulder. Torvald was the first to speak. Colonel Henstress, how was your flight? Is Avandi Marshall still planning to run for Senate? The colonel didn't answer. He waved to a group of local dignitaries and hustled toward them. As he moved, he thrust his briefcase into San Demon's hands. San Demon looked around, confused. Gentlemen, Henstress was amongst the group in an instant, shaking hands and laughing as if nothing was out of the ordinary. They all seemed quite pleased to see him. Sandemon grabbed Torvald and leaned in. "What is happening?" Torvald shrugged, just as confused. Ariel zoomed in, trying to capture the movement of their lips. Just then, the group of dignitaries parted to reveal the real reason for the hubbub. 3 high council members standing amidst the group, their armed guards pushing away any and all onlookers. Colonel Henstress dropped to one knee and thrust his fist to his chest in military fashion. Javert Josephus, his gray-black hair swept into a fantastical high sheet, cravat flecked with gold and platinum, took Henstress warmly in his arms. Their embrace went on for a considerably long time. When they separated, the 3 council members, Henstress, and their associated guard Henstress and their associated guards climbed into the hover cars and motored away. Sandemon looked around, trying to grasp what had just taken place. He reached for his comm device. "Karis, the colonel just blew right past me. Handed me his briefcase. He left with 3 council members. What the heck is going on?" The woman on the screen wore a severe expression. She was on board the mothership, the sound of engines thrumming off screen. The pin on her label made clear who she worked for, the Thermopylaean Navy. "Captain, I've been told the colonel has urgent business with the council. I would imagine he'll need his briefcase." "I'm not an errand boy, Karis. I'm a goddamned ambassador. This is ridiculous." Sandemon was starting to feel like an ape in a zoo. Reporters and passerby all seemed to be expecting him to dance or tell a joke or something. The woman consulted a chart and then looked back up. She seemed bored. "I'm sorry, Captain. I can contact Avandi Marshal for you if you like." The captain's shoulders slumped. "No, that..." Torvald had hailed a cab and was holding it for him. "That won't be necessary. Thank you, Lieutenant." "Captain." The screen went black. Sandemon palmed the device and slowly ambled to the car. He bent in to see Torvald and his cameraman going over notes. He cleared his throat. Torvald scooted over. "Where to?" The driver was friendly, but he clearly wasn't a huge news consumer. He hadn't even recognized the captain. Torvald shouted, "The Capitol building!" The driver nodded, easing the cab slowly into traffic. We don't get many Sandemon chapters, but I like the guy. He's fun. He don't get no respect. Oh, that was Rodney Dangerfield, I guess. Oh, Jesus. World's best impressionist right here. All right, folks. Come back next time. Things are really getting good. Jorn's back at it, baby. All right. See you then.